The Grand Council chamber of the Xylar Alliance hummed with the low murmur of 100 different species in quiet conversation. The curved walls, embedded with crystalline displays showing the vastness of their territory, spanning over 2,000 star systems, reflected the pride of an interstellar civilization at the height of its power. At the center of the chamber, Governor Forlag's tentacular appendages tapped impatiently on the polished surface of the High Council table. "Let us begin the assessment of the newest spacefaring species," Forlag announced, his voice translator conveying his natural clicking speech into the standard galactic dialect. "The humans of Earth have achieved rudimentary, faster-than-light travel and have petitioned for recognition." Commander Kalen of the Viker, a tall, muscular being with iridescent scaled skin and eyes that seemed to track movement with unsettling precision, scoffed audibly. His species was known throughout the Alliance for their lightning-fast reflexes and military prowess. "I've reviewed their preliminary biological scans," he said, displaying holographic data with a casual flick of his clawed hand. "Their neural processing speeds are laughable, averaging 150 to 250 milliseconds for basic reactions. My warriors process and respond in under 10 milliseconds. They're practically moving in slow motion." Dr. Eris Thorne, the Alliance's leading xenobiologist from the Quelnath species, studied the data with more measured interest. Her elongated fingers, each tipped with sensitive pads capable of detecting molecular structures through touch alone, scrolled through the complex neural mapping of the human brain. "Their cerebral structure is indeed simple compared to our more advanced species," she confirmed. "However, I find it curious that they've managed to achieve spaceflight with such limitations. Perhaps there are compensatory mechanisms we're missing. Or perhaps they simply got lucky," Kalen retorted. "Many primitive species stumble upon scientific breakthroughs without truly understanding them." Governor Forlag raised a limb for silence. "Regardless of your personal assessments, protocol demands a standard integration assessment program. We will conduct the full battery of tests, physiological, cognitive, and reflex evaluations, before assigning them their proper classification within the Alliance hierarchy. I recommend Category 7 designation, low potential, non-priority," Kalen suggested. "Based on their biological limitations alone, they can hardly contribute meaningfully to our collective. The classification will be determined after the formal assessment," Forlag reminded him, though his tone suggested he found Kalen's recommendation reasonable. "Have the human representatives arrived at the research station?" "Yes, Governor," Dr. Thorne confirmed. "They've sent 2 individuals, a neuroscientist named Dr. Alara Vance and a military pilot, Captain Marcus Jones. They're being processed at Docking Bay 12 and will be escorted to the testing facilities shortly." "Very well," Forlag concluded. "Let us proceed with the formality and document their capabilities appropriately. I suspect this won't require much of our valuable time." The Xylar research station orbiting the neutral planet Helios 7 was a marvel of engineering. A massive rotating ring structure with 16 specialized testing wings extending like spokes from its central hub. As Dr. Vance and Captain Jones were escorted through its gleaming corridors, the human visitors did their best to maintain professional composure despite their awe. Dr. Alara Vance, a tall woman with short silver hair and sharp, observant eyes, had spent her career studying the neurological basis of human reflexes and perception. When Earth's nascent Interstellar Affairs Office had requested her participation in this assessment, she'd seen it as both a professional opportunity and a patriotic duty. Captain Marcus Jones walked beside her, his military posture perfect but relaxed. A decorated combat pilot with thousands of flight hours and several commendations for extraordinary reflexes in crisis situations, Jones had been selected as the physical specimen for the testing procedures. At 34, he was in peak physical condition, though by the standards of the various Xylar species they passed in the hallways, he appeared utterly unremarkable. "They don't think much of us, do they?" Jones muttered quietly to Vance as they noticed the dismissive glances from a group of Viker officers. "We're an unknown quantity," Vance replied diplomatically. And from what I understand about Xylar culture, unknown quantities are automatically suspect until proven valuable. Their escort, a slender being with translucent skin through which complex circulatory systems were visible, stopped before a set of massive doors emblazoned with symbols that shifted and changed as they watched. You will now enter the multidimensional reaction assessment chamber, the escort announced through its translator. Commander Kalen and Dr. Thorne will oversee your evaluation. Please follow all instructions precisely. The doors slid open to reveal a vast, domed chamber. At its center stood what appeared to be a circular platform surrounded by dozens of projectors, sensors, and mechanical arms of varying shapes and sizes. The walls themselves seemed alive with technology, pulsing with lights, holographic displays, and monitoring equipment. Dr. Thorne greeted them with what the humans assumed was a formal gesture of welcome, a sweeping motion of her elongated fingers. Commander Kalen stood slightly behind her, his posture radiating skepticism and impatience. "Welcome to our assessment facility," Dr. Thorne began. "We will be conducting a comprehensive evaluation of your species' capabilities, focusing particularly on neural processing and reaction times. These measurements will help determine your classification within the Alliance hierarchy and identify appropriate integration pathways." "We appreciate the opportunity," Dr. Vance responded professionally. "Earth is eager to establish productive relations with the Xylar Alliance." Kalen made a sound that their translators interpreted as a dismissive grunt. "Let's proceed with the testing. Captain Jones, you will be our physical subject. Please step onto the central platform." As Jones moved to comply, a Viker warrior emerged from an adjacent chamber. The being stood nearly 7 feet tall, with a body that seemed engineered for combat. Powerful musculature rippling beneath scaled skin, eyes constantly in motion, tracking everything in the room with predatory attentiveness. "This is elite warrior Zexcor," Kalen announced with obvious pride. "He will demonstrate the baseline performance expected of Alliance military personnel." The Viker warrior stepped onto the platform, assuming a ready stance. Instantly, the chamber transformed. Holographic projectors came to life, surrounding Zexcor with a three-dimensional environment filled with shifting patterns, while mechanical arms extended from below and above, carrying various stimulus devices. The multidimensional reaction meter evaluates responses to visual, auditory, and tactile stimuli of increasing complexity, Dr. Thorne explained to the humans. It begins with simple, predictable patterns and progressively introduces randomized, chaotic elements that cannot be anticipated through pattern recognition. What followed was nothing short of extraordinary. The Viker warrior moved with astonishing speed, responding to flashing lights, sounds, and physical stimuli with precision that seemed almost prescient. His movements were fluid, economical, and blindingly fast. When the demonstration concluded, Kalen gestured to a holographic display showing a series of measurements. "Average reaction time, 8.7 milliseconds, he announced proudly. "That is the standard of excellence in the Alliance." Dr. Thorne nodded appreciatively before turning to Captain Jones. "Now, if you would please take position on the platform. We will begin with the basic assessment protocol." Jones stepped forward, assuming a natural stance at the center of the platform. He looked relaxed but focused, his eyes alert but not tense. "Begin Level 1 assessment," Dr. Thorne instructed the system. The first series of tests were straightforward, lights flashing in sequence, sounds playing in patterns, tactile stimulators providing gentle pressure at predictable intervals. Jones responded competently, though nowhere near the speed displayed by the Viker warrior. His movements seemed almost sluggish by comparison, taking a noticeable fraction of a second to register and respond to each stimulus. In the observation area, Kalen glanced at the measurements with a satisfied expression. 173 milliseconds average. Exactly as our preliminary scans indicated. Quite slow, even by the standards of our less advanced member species. Dr. Vance watched the proceedings with a neutral expression, though she noticed Jones seemed slightly tense. "He's still adjusting to the environment," she noted. "Human performance typically improves once initial nervousness subsides." It will make little difference, Kalen replied dismissively. The neural pathways simply aren't capable of faster processing. Your species' limitations are biological, not psychological. Dr. Thorne, more diplomatic than her military colleague, simply nodded and instructed the system to progress to the next level. Initiating Level 2, increased complexity and reduced predictability. The testing environment transformed. The patterns of stimuli became more complex, with shorter intervals between them. Jones's performance remained similar, competent but unremarkable, with reaction times consistently hovering between 150 to 200 milliseconds. Kalen seemed increasingly bored while Dr. Thorne continued taking detailed notes. Let's move directly to Level 4, Kalen suggested after 20 minutes of testing. I believe we've established their baseline capabilities sufficiently. Dr. Thorne hesitated momentarily. That's quite a significant jump in difficulty. The protocol typically recommends. We're wasting valuable research time, Kalen interrupted. If anything, it will simply confirm what we already know about their limitations. Dr. Thorne acquiesced with a gesture of deference. Very well. Captain Jones, we will now move to an advanced testing protocol. The stimuli will be genuinely randomized, based on subatomic particle decay, making them truly unpredictable. Additionally, the speed and complexity will increase substantially. Jones nodded, rolling his shoulders slightly to release tension. Understood. I'm ready. Initiating Level 4 assessment, Dr. Thorne announced. The chamber's atmosphere changed instantly. The holographic environment became a chaotic storm of light and shadow. The mechanical arms moved with blurring speed, approaching from unpredictable angles. Sounds blasted from dozens of directions simultaneously, creating a disorienting cacophony. For the first few seconds, Jones seemed overwhelmed, his movements becoming jerky and reactive as he struggled to process the barrage of stimuli. Dr. Vance frowned slightly, concerned that the jump in difficulty had been too severe. Then something remarkable happened. Jones's entire demeanor changed. His eyes, previously darting frantically to track the multiple threats, seemed to unfocus slightly. His stance shifted subtly, becoming more centered and grounded. And then he began to move. What followed defied all expectations. Jones's hands intercepted incoming stimuli before they fully materialized. His body pivoted and flowed around obstacles before they fully formed. He wasn't just reacting. He appeared to be anticipating, responding to threats seemingly before they existed. In the observation area, the readouts told an impossible story. Reaction times plummeted from 170 milliseconds to 15 milliseconds, then 12, then 8, matching and then exceeding the Viker warrior's performance. For certain stimuli, the measurements dropped as low as 5 milliseconds, below what Xyler science considered theoretically possible for biological neural processing. The observation chamber fell silent. Dr. Thorne stared at the readouts in disbelief, running diagnostic checks on the equipment. Kalen's expression shifted from boredom to confusion, then to alarmed suspicion. "This is impossible," he finally declared, breaking the stunned silence. "The equipment must be malfunctioning." Dr. Vance studied the readouts with intense interest, her scientific curiosity overriding her surprise. "The equipment seems to be functioning correctly," she observed. "And Captain Jones's performance is extraordinary, but not entirely surprising to me." "Not surprising?" Kalen turned to her incredulously. "Your species cannot possibly process neural signals at this speed. It contradicts all established xenobiological principles." Dr. Thorne was rapidly reviewing the biometric data collected during the test. "The most perplexing aspect is that his brain activity doesn't align with these reaction speeds," she noted, genuine scientific curiosity overtaking her initial skepticism. "The cortical processing remains relatively slow, yet his physical responses are occurring faster than his brain should be capable of coordinating." On the testing platform, Jones had entered what appeared to be a state of perfect flow. His movements were no longer conscious or deliberate. They were fluid, instinctive and preternaturally fast. His expression was calm, almost meditative, despite the chaos surrounding him. "Enough," Kalen suddenly declared. "Terminate the assessment immediately." The holographic environment dissipated and the mechanical arms retracted. Jones blinked several times, as if coming out of trance, then looked toward the observation area with a slightly confused expression. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked. Dr. Thorne approached the platform, her scientific demeanor unable to fully mask her amazement. "Captain Jones, are you employing some form of technological enhancement? Perhaps neural implants or reflex augmentation devices?" Jones looked genuinely perplexed. "No, nothing like that. Standard human physiology, I assure you." "Then explain how you achieved reaction times physiologically impossible for your neural architecture," Kalen demanded, joining them on the platform. His posture had shifted from dismissive to alert, even threatening. Dr. Vance stepped forward. "If I may," she interjected, "I believe I can offer a scientific explanation for what you've observed." The emergency council convened in a secure laboratory adjacent to the testing chamber. Captain Jones and Dr. Vance were seated at a central table, surrounded by a half-dozen Xyler scientists and security personnel. The atmosphere was tense, somewhere between scientific inquiry and interrogation. "You will explain this anomaly immediately," Kalen demanded, his translator barely managing to soften the aggressive tone of his natural speech. "We have scanned Captain Jones thoroughly and found no technological enhancements, yet his performance defies all biological possibility." Dr. Vance maintained her professional composure. "What you've observed is a phenomenon that Earth scientists have been studying for decades, though our understanding remains incomplete. We call it the Instinctive Reaction Network, or IREN." She gestured to a holographic display showing human neuroanatomy. Standard measurements of human neural processing focus on conscious reaction time. The speed at which a stimulus reaches our brain is processed by our cortex and results in a deliberate action. That process indeed takes approximately 150 to 250 milliseconds, as your scans correctly identified. Dr. Thorne leaned forward with genuine scientific interest. But Captain Jones was responding in under 10 milliseconds, faster than the signal could possibly travel through your neural pathways, let alone be processed by your cerebral cortex. "Precisely," Vance nodded, "because he wasn't using his cerebral cortex for those responses. Humans possess a secondary reaction system that bypasses conscious processing entirely for certain types of stimuli, especially in high-stress or high-demand situations." She manipulated the holographic display, highlighting neural pathways connecting sensory inputs directly to the spinal cord and lower brain structures. The IREN creates direct links between sensory inputs and motor outputs, routing signals through the spinal cord and brainstem rather than sending them to the cerebral cortex for processing. This allows the body to react before conscious awareness even occurs. Kalen's expression remained skeptical. "That might explain slightly faster reactions, but not the speeds we observed. And it certainly doesn't explain how Jones appeared to anticipate stimuli before they manifested." Dr. Vance nodded in acknowledgement of the valid point. "The anticipatory component is even more fascinating. The IRN doesn't just create shortcuts, it processes sensory information in parallel with the conscious mind, but at a much more granular level. It detects micro-patterns, subtle shifts in light, almost imperceptible sounds, minute air pressure changes that occur milliseconds before the main stimulus." "You're suggesting that humans can subconsciously detect precursor signals that precede the primary stimulus?" Dr. Thorne asked, her scientific skepticism evident but balanced with curiosity. "Exactly," Vance confirmed. "In situations of extreme focus or danger, the IRN can process these subtle cues and initiate motor responses based on predicted outcomes, creating the appearance of prescience. It's not actually predicting the future. It's detecting the earliest possible indicators of what's about to happen and responding to them." Captain Jones, who had been quietly listening to the exchange, finally spoke. "From my perspective, it feels like instinct or muscle memory. In combat flying, we call it getting in the zone. Time seems to slow down, and you react without thinking. Your body just knows what to do before your mind catches up. Dr. Thorne was rapidly entering data into her personal device, running simulations based on Vance's explanation. After several minutes of tense silence, she looked up with an expression that translated as astonishment even across species. "The model fits," she announced. "If we accept the existence of this IRN system and its capabilities as described, the simulation produces reaction patterns nearly identical to what we observed in Captain Jones's performance." Kalen remained unconvinced. "This is preposterous. You expect us to believe that humans, whose technology and biology we had assessed as relatively primitive, possess some form of supernatural reflex system that our advanced sensors failed to detect until now." "Not supernatural," Dr. Vance corrected firmly. "Merely unexpected. The IRN doesn't register on standard neural scans because it operates largely through the peripheral nervous system and specialized pathways that don't generate the same signature as cortical processing. And it's not always active. It requires specific triggers like adrenaline, intense focus, or perception of threat, which explains why it didn't manifest during the earlier, simpler tests," Dr. Thorne realized. "The basic stimuli weren't complex or threatening enough to activate this secondary system." "Precisely," Vance agreed. "In everyday situations, humans operate at the speeds your initial scans detected. The IRN only fully engages in extraordinary circumstances." Throughout the station, word of the anomalous human performance spread rapidly. Governor Forlag himself arrived within hours, accompanied by a contingent of advisors and security personnel. The testing chamber was sealed off, declared a strategic research zone with the highest security clearance. In a private briefing room, Forlag received the full report from Dr. Thorne and Commander Kalen, their differing perspectives creating a tense atmosphere. "This changes everything about our assessment of Earth and its inhabitants," Thorne emphasized, displaying the test results and subsequent simulations. "The humans possess a biological capability that none of our member species have developed, a parallel processing system that allows for reaction times that exceed even our most enhanced warriors under certain conditions." Kalen's response was immediate and forceful, "which is precisely why we must reconsider their integration into the Alliance. A species with unpredictable combat reflexes that surpass our best military assets represents a significant security concern." Governor Forlag absorbed the information thoughtfully, his multiple eyes blinking in the complex pattern that indicated deep consideration in his species. "You believe they pose a threat?" "Absolutely," Kalen asserted. "Consider the military implications. Our tactical systems, our combat protocols, our entire defensive doctrine is based on known reaction parameters. Beings who can respond at speeds we considered biologically impossible upend centuries of military science." "That seems an overreaction," Dr. Thorne countered. "The IRN appears to be primarily defensive in nature. It enables rapid response to threats, not aggressive action. And it has significant limitations. It cannot be maintained indefinitely, requires specific triggering conditions, and doesn't enhance higher cognitive functions like strategic planning or technological innovation." "Dr. Vance has requested permission to conduct additional demonstrations," she added. "I believe these would provide valuable context for our assessment." Forlag considered momentarily before nodding agreement. "Proceed with the demonstrations. I wish to understand the full implications of this capability before making any policy decisions." Over the next 3 days, a series of specialized tests were conducted under the direct observation of the Xyler High Council. Each was designed to explore different aspects of a human IRN system and its potential applications or limitations. In a modified flight simulator, Captain Jones demonstrated combat piloting maneuvers that left even veteran Viker pilots stunned. His ability to respond to unpredictable threats within the simulation, debris, enemy fire, sudden obstacles, exceeded the capabilities of the Alliance's most elite pilots by a significant margin. The advantage is most pronounced in close-quarters combat scenarios, Dr. Vance explained to the observing council members. In situations where split-second decisions matter more than long-term strategic planning, the IRN provides humans with a unique edge. A cybersecurity simulation followed, with Jones attempting to identify and counter system penetration attempts in real time. While his conscious understanding of the complex code was limited, his IRN-driven pattern recognition allowed him to spot intrusion signatures with uncanny speed, often identifying attacks before they fully developed. The IRN doesn't understand what it's seeing, Vance clarified, but it excels at detecting deviations from expected patterns almost instantaneously, then triggering an appropriate response. Perhaps most surprisingly to the Xyler observers was a diplomatic simulation. Jones was paired with several alliance negotiators, with instructions to detect deception or hidden agendas. Without any formal training in xenological microexpressions, he consistently identified subtle signs of duplicity that even trained negotiators missed. This suggests the IRN processes social cues as effectively as physical threats, Dr. Thorne noted with particular interest. It has implications far beyond combat applications. Throughout these demonstrations, Dr. Vance provided scientific context while Captain Jones offered experiential insights. Together, they painted a picture of a capability that was simultaneously remarkable and limited, a specialized evolutionary adaptation rather than a comprehensive superiority. By the end of the third day, the Xyler High Council reconvened to reconsider humanity's classification within the Alliance hierarchy. The chamber was filled with tension as representatives from various factions presented their assessments. Commander Kalen spoke first, his position somewhat softened but still cautious. I acknowledge that the human IRN capability is more nuanced than I initially assessed. However, I maintain that it represents a potential security concern that warrants careful monitoring. Their reflexive capabilities exceed our established parameters and could prove destabilizing in certain contexts. He paused, making a concession that clearly came with difficulty. That said, I no longer advocate for exclusion or isolation. Instead, I recommend controlled integration with appropriate security protocols and limitations on certain military technologies until we fully understand the implications of their unique biology. Dr. Thorne presented a different perspective. The human IRN system represents a biological innovation that could benefit the entire alliance if properly understood and leveraged. I propose accelerated integration with extensive collaborative research initiatives. Humans could provide invaluable contributions in areas ranging from emergency response to threat detection to specialized piloting. She displayed a series of potential applications. Imagine human pilots navigating hazardous asteroid fields where computational lag is the limiting factor, or human security specialists identifying cyber threats faster than our most advanced AI systems. The potential advantages of partnership far outweigh the theoretical risks. Governor Forlag listened to the various presentations with characteristic patience before rendering his decision. Based on the evidence presented, the human species will be reclassified from Category 7 to a special integration designation. Their integration will proceed under strategic observation, with accelerated pathways in fields where their unique capabilities offer clear advantages to the Alliance. He turned to Dr. Vance and Captain Jones. Your species has surprised us, a rare occurrence in a civilization as ancient as ours. Consider a compliment. The unexpected is both a challenge and an opportunity. We choose to view humanity as the latter. 5 years after the historic reclassification of humanity within the Xyler Alliance, the integration of Earth's first generation of interstellar representatives had progressed far beyond initial expectations. At the prestigious Helios Flight Academy, Captain Marcus Jones, now Fleet Commander Jones, supervised the graduation of the first mixed class of human and Xyler pilots. The training program he had developed specifically emphasized the complementary strengths of different species. The strategic planning and technological mastery of the Viker combined with the instinctive reaction capabilities of humans. You are not simply pilots, he told the assembled graduates, but pioneers of a new approach to space travel and defense. Each of you brings unique biological advantages to your shared mission. Together, you represent capabilities that none of our civilizations could achieve alone. The integration hadn't been without challenges. Initial cultural clashes were inevitable as species with vastly different evolutionary histories learned to work together. Humans' iron capabilities sometimes created tension. Viker officers particularly struggled with being outperformed in areas they had historically dominated. Small moments of adjustment became common throughout the Alliance. A human analyst catching a falling data crystal before her Quelnath colleague realized she had dropped it. A human security officer identifying a subtle intrusion pattern that bypassed the most sophisticated Xylar detection systems. These daily demonstrations of the IRN in action gradually transformed skepticism into grudging respect and eventually into genuine appreciation. Dr. Alara Vance had become the director of the newly established Interspecies Neuroscience Institute, where researchers from dozens of Alliance species collaborated to understand the full implications of different neural architectures. Her work had expanded far beyond the initial IRN studies, exploring how various species' unique neurological adaptations might complement one another in unprecedented ways. The most exciting discoveries occur at the intersections, she frequently reminded her research teams. For millennia, each of our species evolved in isolation, developing specialized solutions to universal challenges. Now we can learn from one another's evolutionary paths. The IRN training programs she helped develop have become a subject of controversy among humans themselves. Some embraced the scientific enhancement of this natural capability, while others worried about reducing human reflexes to a mere biological asset to be optimized. The ethical debates continued, but the practical benefits were undeniable as human-inclusive teams consistently outperformed homogeneous groups in crisis response scenarios. On the anniversary of the initial discovery, a formal reception was held at the Xylar Embassy on Earth. The elegant room buzzed with conversation as representatives from across the Alliance mingled with Earth's diplomatic corps. Commander Jones, resplendent in his formal uniform adorned with both Earth and Alliance commendations, found himself face to face with an unexpected guest, Commander Kalen, now promoted to Overseer of Alliance Security. Commander Jones. Kalen greeted him with the formal Viker gesture of professional respect, a significant change from their first encounter. Your training program has produced impressive results. The mixed squadron outperformed all established benchmarks in the recent crisis response exercises. Thank you, Overseer, Jones replied with equal formality. The credit belongs to the instructors from all our species who were willing to adapt their techniques to leverage our complementary strengths. A moment of awkward silence passed before Kalen spoke again, his tone more personal. I must admit I was incorrect in my initial assessment of your species. I viewed your biological differences purely as deficiencies rather than specialized adaptations. Jones smiled slightly. An understandable conclusion based on the data you had at the time. We humans made the same mistake throughout our history, judging other species by how closely they matched our own capabilities rather than recognizing their unique strengths. The IRN still fascinates our scientists, Kalen noted. Have your people determined its evolutionary origins? It seems an unusually specialized adaptation. The leading theory is that it developed during our time as both predators and prey, Jones explained. Unlike many evolved apex predators, humans spent millions of years vulnerable to larger, faster animals. We couldn't outrun or overpower them, so we developed the ability to anticipate and react, to make the most of split-second opportunities for escape or ambush. Fascinating, Kalen remarked. A survival mechanism born of weakness becoming your greatest strength. There's a profound lesson in that, I believe. Across the room, Dr. Vance was engaged in an animated discussion with Dr. Thorne and several other xenobiologists. Their focus had shifted from the IRN itself to its implications for understanding consciousness and neural processing across all species. The most profound question remains unanswered, Thorne was saying. If humans can react before conscious awareness, what does this tell us about the nature of consciousness itself? Is awareness merely a story we tell ourselves after our bodies have already acted? It suggests consciousness may be more of a continuum than a binary state, Vance responded. The I-REN represents a form of awareness that doesn't require conscious processing, a pre-conscious intelligence that knows without understanding, acts without deciding. After the reception, Commander Jones found himself standing alone on a balcony overlooking the glittering skyline of New Geneva, the Earth's diplomatic capital. The stars above now represented not just distant lights, but homes to civilizations and species with whom humanity was building unprecedented connections. He was joined by Dr. Vance, who handed him a glass of champagne. Quite a journey from being classified as low potential, non-priority, she observed with amusement. Jones chuckled. I still remember the look on Kalen's face when the reaction time measurements started dropping. I thought he might short-circuit his translator. They shared a laugh before lapsing into contemplative silence, gazing up at the stars. Do you think we'll ever fully understand it? Jones finally asked. The I-REN, I mean. After 5 years of intense study, we've mapped its pathways, optimized its activation, even developed enhancement protocols. But the subjective experience still defies explanation. Vance considered the question carefully. I'm not sure we can ever fully understand any aspect of consciousness, our own or others. We can measure the neural correlates, identify the patterns, even predict the outcomes. But the experience itself remains uniquely personal. She gestured toward the stars. Perhaps that's why the Alliance ultimately values us, despite our many limitations compared to their advanced civilizations. We've reminded them that biology still holds mysteries that technology hasn't solved, that even in a universe of wonders, the most remarkable frontiers may lie within. Jones nodded thoughtfully. They thought we were slow until they measured our reaction time. I wonder what other surprises we might have in store for them, and for ourselves. Above them, the night sky filled with stars representing countless civilizations, each evolved with their own unique adaptations and perspectives. Humanity had found its place among them not by mimicking their strengths, but by offering something unexpected. A reminder that even in a universe spanning thousands of star systems and hundreds of species, the capacity for surprise remained perhaps the most valuable trait of all.